Chapter 1. The Hedge Between Us. The rhythmic whir of the lawnmower was usually the most exciting part of my Saturday mornings. A man's gotta have his simple pleasures, right? My name's Donald Anderson, and my life was pretty much a well-maneuvered ship, calm and predictable. Paramedic by trade, devoted husband and father by calling. Or so I told myself. Then Tyler Mitchell moved in next door. I first saw him wrestling a futon out of a U-Haul, all lean muscle and tousled sandy blonde hair. My initial thought was, well, that's a real good way to throw out your back. My second, less professional thought was, oh, he was everything I wasn't. Vibrant, loud, and he moved with a casual grace that made even moving furniture look like an art form. My wife, Sarah, thought he was charming. My son, Leo, who is 8 and obsessed with anything new and shiny, declared him super cool after Tyler showed him a few tricks with a vintage camera. Our first real interaction was over the hedge, a sprawling, unruly beast that divided our properties. I was attempting to prune it into submission, armed with industrial-grade shears and a grim determination. He appeared on his side, dressed in a surprisingly clean white t-shirt and jeans, a small, delicate pair of clippers in hand. "Need a hand there, Paul Bunyan?" he'd quipped, his blue eyes twinkling. I grunted, nearly losing my grip. "Donald, and I've got it." He just smiled, a disarming, easy thing that reached his eyes. "Tyler, and it looks like that hedge is winning." He was right, of course. A particularly stubborn branch had snagged my shirt, and I was about to declare war on it. "You know," he continued, stepping closer to the hedge, his voice a low, pleasant hum, "my mom's always said the best way to tackle a big job is with a good cup of coffee and a plan. Or, just by accepting defeat gracefully." I actually barked out a laugh. It surprised me how easily he'd drawn it out. Most people found me a bit stoic. "I don't do defeat," I said, though my tone was lighter than I'd intended. He leaned against the hedge, completely at ease. That's what they all say until they're tangled in a shrubbery. Anyway, I just wanted to introduce myself. "Welcome to the neighborhood." Or rather, thanks for welcoming me. That was it. A simple introduction. But something shifted. The air felt a little warmer, the sunlight a little brighter. And for the first time in a long time, my predictable ship felt like it might be sailing into uncharted waters. Chapter 2. The Sprinkler Incident. The summer heat in our neighborhood was no joke, and our lawns, despite our best efforts, seemed perpetually on the brink of surrendering to a crispy, golden demise. My usual method involved a precisely timed, early morning sprinkler system. Tyler, on the other hand, seemed to favor chaos. It was a Tuesday, just after dinner. I was attempting to explain the finer points of tactical maneuvering in a board game to Leo, who was more interested in building a fort out of the game box. Suddenly, a shriek from outside. Not a distressed shriek, more like a delighted, high-pitched squeal. I looked out the window to see Leo, soaking wet, running through a chaotic spray of water emanating from Tyler's yard. Tyler himself was standing near a newly purchased, octopus-like sprinkler, adjusting its nozzles with a grin. He looked up, caught my eye, and waved cheerfully. I sighed. My son, usually so meticulous about not getting his clothes dirty, was now a dripping mess. Sarah, bless her heart, just laughed in the kitchen. "Looks like Leo's found a new best friend." I walked outside, intending to politely but firmly explain the concept of property lines and pre-planned sprinkler schedules. As I approached the hedge, Tyler's blue eyes met mine, crinkling at the corners. He was laughing, a genuine, uninhibited sound that was surprisingly infectious. "Donald, join the party," he yelled over the splashing, gesturing wildly at the sprinkler. "It's a monster. It's got like 8 arms." Leo, shivering slightly but beaming, ran up to me. "Dad, it's awesome. Mr. Tyler says it's a water dance party." I managed a tight smile. "Leo, go inside and get changed before you catch a cold." Tyler, perhaps sensing my less than enthusiastic mood, quickly turned down the sprinkler's intensity. "Sorry about that, Donald." Leo seemed to be having a blast. I figured a little impromptu fun wouldn't hurt. He had that way about him, that disarming charm that made it hard to stay annoyed. He was genuinely apologetic, his eyes holding a hint of concern. I found myself softening. "It's fine," I said, though my voice was still a little stiff. "Just next time, a little warning?" He grinned, that easy, heart-stopping smile of his. "Consider it noted. Want to test out its maximum range? I bet I can get it all the way to your porch." I looked at him, truly looked at him. The way his wet t-shirt clung to his lean frame, the way his sandy hair was slicked back from his forehead, the way his eyes sparkled with mischief. And for a fleeting, dangerous moment, I wanted nothing more than to join him in the chaotic spray, to feel the cool water on my skin and laugh like that. "No, thanks," I managed, my voice a bit hoarser than usual. "I'll leave the water dance parties to you." But as I walked back to my house, I couldn't help but glance back. He was still smiling, watching me. And I felt a pull, a strange magnetic force drawing me towards the vibrant chaos that was Tyler Mitchell. Chapter 3. Late Night Confessions. Our lives began to intersect in small, unexpected ways. Tyler would borrow a wrench. I'd offer him a hand with a stuck window. Our wives, Sarah and Lena, started chatting over the fence, exchanging recipes and commiserating about the challenges of raising 8-year-olds. It was all very neighborly, very normal, except when it wasn't. It was a particularly warm evening, the kind where the air hung heavy and humid even after the sun went down. I was out on my porch trying to fix a creaky swing set with a flashlight clamped between my teeth when I heard a familiar voice. Having a midnight rendezvous with a rusty swing, Donald? Tyler appeared out of the shadows, a mug in his hand. He was wearing faded sweatpants and an old t-shirt, looking impossibly comfortable and, for some reason, even more appealing. "Just trying to prevent future lawsuits," I mumbled around the flashlight. He chuckled, the sound soft in the quiet night. "Mind if I join you? This tea is lonely." I grunted an affirmative, and he settled onto the step opposite me. The air grew thick with the scent of his herbal tea and something else, something warm and distinctly Tyler. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the chirping of crickets and the occasional clang of my wrench. "You know," he said eventually, his voice low, almost a whisper, "sometimes I wonder if we spend our lives just fixing things instead of enjoying them." I paused my wrenching. "It's about responsibility, Tyler. Keeping things in working order." He took a slow sip of his tea. "And what about keeping ourselves in working order? What about finding joy, not just maintaining the status quo?" His words hung in the air, striking a chord I hadn't known was out of tune. I thought about my own life, meticulously ordered, carefully constructed. And suddenly it felt a little small. "You're a deep thinker for a man who owns an octopus sprinkler," I ribbed, trying to lighten the mood, but my voice was still a bit rough. He laughed, a genuine, mirthful sound. "It's my secret. I lure people in with whimsy, then hit him with the existential dread." He paused, then his tone shifted, becoming more serious. "No, but really, Donald, you seem wound-tight. Is everything okay?" The question was so direct, so utterly him. Most people skirted around such things with me. I usually deflected, offered a vague platitude. But with Tyler, under the cloak of darkness and the shared stillness of the night, it felt different. Safer. "It's fine," I said, but the lie felt heavy on my tongue. He didn't push, just nodded slowly. "Okay, just if you ever need to talk, I'm a good listener. My mom's trained me well." I looked at him then, really looked. His eyes, even in the dim light, held a quiet understanding, a warmth that seemed to seep into my bones. He wasn't judging, he was just there. And in that moment, under the silent gaze of the moon, I felt a flicker of something new, something dangerous and exhilarating stir within me. A secret. Chapter 4. The Shared Secret. The sprinkler incident and the late-night porch talk had subtly shifted the dynamic between us. There was a new layer of unspoken understanding, a comfortable ease that settled in even when our wives were around. It was like we shared a secret language, communicated through glances and subtle smiles. Our wives, Sarah and Lena, continued to bond, much to my relief and, I suspected, Tyler's amusement. They'd often plan playdates for Leo and Lena's daughter, Maya, leaving Tyler and me to our own devices. These were the moments our secret truly bloomed. One afternoon, the kids were off at the park with Lena, and Sarah was at a book club. Tyler was in his garage, attempting to reassemble a vintage camera that looked like it had survived a war. I was attempting to fix a leaky faucet in my own garage, getting increasingly frustrated. I heard a frustrated groan from next door, followed by a clatter. Stupid, stubborn contraption. Tyler's voice muffled. I walked over, peering into his garage. He was hunched over a workbench, surrounded by tiny screws and springs. He looked up, his brow furrowed in concentration, a smudge of grease on his cheek. "Having some trouble?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. He threw his hands up in exasperation. "This thing is possessed. It's like a mechanical puzzle designed by a sadist. I swear it just laughs at me." I stepped inside. The garage was a creative chaos. Canvases propped against walls, half-finished sculptures, and shelves overflowing with what looked like antique junk to my practical eye. But there was a vibrancy to it, a reflection of him. "Let me take a look," I offered. I was good with my hands, with intricate mechanisms. My paramedic training had honed that. He hesitated, then a hopeful glint appeared in his eyes. "You know cameras?" "Bits and pieces," I understated. I picked up a small, complex part, examining it closely. "Looks like this spring is bent." He watched me, mesmerized, as I meticulously straightened the tiny coil with a pair of needle-nose pliers. My fingers, usually strong and sure, felt surprisingly delicate as I worked. He leaned closer, his arm brushing mine, a fleeting contact that sent a jolt through me. "You're really good at that," he murmured, his voice closer than I expected. I finished, slotting the spring back into place. "Comes with the territory. Gotta fix what's broken." He looked at me, a strange intensity in his blue eyes. "Do you always fix everything, Donald?" The question, so innocent on the surface, felt loaded. It wasn't about the camera anymore. It was about us, about the unspoken thing between us. I met his gaze, and for the first time, I didn't look away. "I try," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He reached out, his fingers lightly brushing the scar on my forearm. The contact was brief, but ignited a spark, a silent acknowledgement of the truth that lay beneath our polite, neighborly facade. We both knew, and in that moment, the shared secret wasn't a burden, but a fragile, exhilarating promise. Chapter 5. The Emergency Call. Being a paramedic, emergencies were my life. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the kind of emergency that arrived on a sunny Saturday afternoon, dressed in a floral sundress and holding a casserole dish. It was Sarah. She came bursting into the garage, where Tyler and I were ahem, discussing the optimal light for outdoor photography. I was admiring his new lens, and he was explaining f-stops with an alarming level of enthusiasm. "Donald, Tyler, emergency." The oven exploded. Her eyes were wide, and a smudge of flour decorated her cheek. My paramedic instincts immediately kicked in. "What? Are you hurt? Is Leo okay?" No, everyone's fine," she wailed. "But the casserole, it's everywhere. And Lena and Maya are coming for dinner in an hour." Tyler and I exchanged a look. This was not a fire, not a heart attack. This was a culinary catastrophe of epic proportions. And it was hilarious. I bit back a smile. "Sarah, honey, the oven didn't explode. The casserole just overflowed. It's a disaster, Donald. I was trying that new recipe Lena gave me, and it bubbled over, and now it's all over the bottom of the oven, and it's smoking, and it smells like burnt cheese and despair." Tyler, bless his impulsive heart, immediately sprang into action. "Fear not, fair damsel. Chef Mitchell is on the case." He grabbed a dish towel and dramatically tied it around his neck like a cape. Sarah, despite her distress, actually giggled. We followed her into the kitchen. The scene was indeed rather dramatic. Smoke billowed from the oven, and the smell of burnt cheese was undeniably potent. "All right, here's the plan," Tyler declared, surveying the wreckage like a battlefield commander. "Donald, you're on fume extraction duty. Open all the windows, get a fan going. Sarah, you're on strategic wipe down. Get those counters sparkling. I, meanwhile, will bravely face the beast within the oven." He grabbed a spatula and a bucket of soapy water, his eyes glinting with a mischievous determination. I, ever the practical one, started opening windows, trying to stifle my laughter. Watching Tyler, who looked more at home with a camera than a cleaning implement, tackle a burnt casserole with such theatrical flair was surprisingly endearing. He got down on his hands and knees, peering into the smoky abyss. It's tenacious," he announced, brandishing the spatula, "but I will not be defeated." I caught his eye over Sarah's head, and a silent laugh passed between us. This was our secret language again, a shared amusement that nobody else quite understood. In the midst of the chaos, in the absurdity of a burnt casserole becoming a culinary emergency, our connection felt stronger, more real. An hour later, the kitchen was miraculously clean, and a new, store-bought casserole was safely baking. Lena and Maya arrived, none the wiser. Tyler, still smelling faintly of burnt cheese but looking victorious, regaled them with a dramatic account of the oven monster and how he, Chef Mitchell, had heroically vanquished it. As he told the story, embellishing details with grand gestures and dramatic pauses, I watched him. He was a force of nature, a whirlwind of joy and charisma. And as he caught my eye, a quick, conspiratorial wink, I knew. This shared life, this intricate dance of secrets and smiles, was becoming dangerously, wonderfully real. Chapter 6, A Close Call. The little moments of shared understanding, the stolen glances, the quiet laughter, they were becoming the bedrock of my week. My carefully constructed life felt a little less rigid, a little more vibrant, but with vibrancy came risk. One particularly sweltering afternoon, Leo and Maya were playing in our backyard. Sarah and Lena were inside, probably discussing the merits of organic kale. Tyler and I were supervising from the patio, me nursing a lukewarm iced tea, him sketching in a small notebook. Suddenly, a loud crash from behind the shed. My head snapped up. "What was that?" I asked, already on my feet. Tyler was already halfway across the yard. "Sounds like trouble with a capital T." We rounded the shed to find Leo and Maya staring, wide-eyed, at a toppled stack of old paint cans. A rainbow of colors had spilled onto the concrete, mixing into a surprisingly vibrant, albeit messy, abstract expressionist puddle. Leo, ever the innocent, had a streak of bright blue paint across his cheek. Before I could even formulate a proper lecture about safety, Tyler burst out laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but a full-bellied, unrestrained roar of amusement. "Well, look at that," he choked out, wiping a tear from his eye. "A masterpiece, a modern marvel." Leo and Maya, who had been on the verge of tears, looked at him, confused, then slowly, tentatively, started to giggle. I, however, was still in crisis management mode. "Tyler, it's a mess. This is going to stain the concrete." He waved a dismissive hand. "Details, Donald, details. Look at the colors. The spontaneous composition. It's like Jackson Pollock met a toddler with a penchant for chaos." He then knelt down, dipping a finger in the orange paint. "Who wants to add their signature to this collaborative work of art?" Before I could intervene, both kids eagerly offered their hands, and Tyler, with a mischievous grin, carefully painted their palms with different colors, then pressed them onto a large piece of cardboard he'd scavenged from his garage. "There," he declared, holding up the impromptu artwork. "The great paint spill of 2025. It's going to be worth millions." The kids were ecstatic, giggling, and covered in paint. I, meanwhile, was torn between exasperation and a ridiculous urge to laugh myself. Tyler caught my eye, his blue eyes dancing with unadulterated joy. He looked so happy, so free, surrounded by the mess he had just encouraged. And in that moment, all my carefully constructed boundaries felt a little flimsy. Just then, Lena stepped out onto the patio. "Is everything all right out here?" It sounds like a stampede. Her voice trailed off as she took in the scene. Two paint-splattered children, a rainbow puddle on the concrete, and Tyler beaming like a mad artist. My heart seized. This was it. The moment our secret would be exposed, not by anything romantic, but by a simple, messy truth. Tyler brought out a side of me that was utterly, joyfully reckless. Lena, ever perceptive, would see the way I looked at him, the way my carefully controlled demeanor had softened in his presence. But Lena just blinked, then a slow smile spread across her face. "Oh, Tyler," she said, shaking her head fondly. "Only you could turn a disaster into a gallery exhibit." She then turned to me, her smile broadening. "Donald, you look like you're about to have a conniption. Relax, it's just paint. Nothing a good hose can't fix." The tension drained from my shoulders. She hadn't seen, or if she had, she'd misinterpreted it as general amusement. A wave of relief, so strong it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. We had been so close to being found out, and yet a part of me, a small, dangerous part, felt a pang of disappointment. The secret, after all, was ours. Chapter 7. The Unspoken Promise. The close call with the paint incident made me acutely aware of the thin ice we were treading. Every shared glance, every lingering touch, felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Our secret wasn't just a game anymore. It was a living, breathing thing that demanded careful handling. One evening, after the kids were asleep and our wives were at a neighborhood committee meeting, something about stricter regulations on garden gnomes, if I recall correctly, I found myself drawn to my back porch. I knew Tyler often worked late in his garage. The soft glow of his work lighted a beacon in the darkness. Sure enough, the light was on. I hesitated for a moment, then walked towards the shared fence. "Working late," I called out, my voice a little rougher than usual. Tyler emerged from his garage, wiping his hands on a rag. He looked tired, a few strands of hair falling into his eyes, but his smile was immediate and genuine. "Just finishing up a commission. A portrait of a very grumpy cat. It's surprisingly demanding." He walked over to the fence, leaning against it, his eyes meeting mine. The silence that fell between us wasn't awkward, but charged, full of unspoken words. "You seemed shaken after the paint thing," he said, his voice soft, perceptive. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Yeah, almost got busted for letting the kids turn the backyard into a Jackson Pollock." He chuckled softly. "Right, that's what it was." His eyes held a knowing glint. I looked away, then back at him. "It's getting harder, Tyler. Whatever this is." His smile faded, replaced by a quiet seriousness. He looked at me, really saw me. "I know, Donald." His voice was barely a whisper. "It is for me, too." The air crackled between us, thick with unspoken longing. It was there, palpable, the desire that had been simmering beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. It was in a way his gaze lingered on my lips, in the subtle shift of his weight towards me. "What are we doing?" I finally managed to ask, the words a raw confession. He reached out, his hand hovering near mine, not quite touching, but the warmth of his skin was almost a physical sensation. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice low and a little strained. "But I don't want it to stop." My heart hammered in my chest. This was dangerous, reckless, everything I usually avoided. But looking at Tyler, at the vulnerability and honesty in his eyes, I found myself nodding. "Me neither," I confessed, the words tasting like freedom and fear all at once. He finally let his fingers brush mine, a feather-light touch that sent shivers down my arm. It was a silent agreement, an unspoken promise, a promise that we would continue to navigate this treacherous, exhilarating path together. A promise that the secret, for now, would remain ours, a fragile, precious thing we both protected. The darkness of the night seemed to press in around us, shielding our dangerous, beautiful truth. Chapter 8. The Open Secret. Weeks turned into months. Our shared glances grew bolder. Our touches lingered longer, always under the guise of casual neighborliness. The tension, the unspoken longing, was a constant hum beneath the surface of our lives. It was exhausting, thrilling, and ultimately unsustainable. One humid Saturday, our families were gathered for a barbecue in my backyard. The kids were shrieking with laughter, engaged in a highly competitive game of backyard baseball. Sarah and Lena were chatting animatedly by the grill. Tyler and I were standing a little apart, ostensibly discussing the finer points of charcoal versus gas. "You know, Tyler said, his voice low. "Leo told Maya that he thinks you and I are best friends." She agreed. I felt a jolt. Best friends? My voice was a little too high. He nodded, a wry smile playing on his lips. "Apparently, our bro bond is legendary." I swallowed hard. "And what about our wives?" He shrugged, glancing towards Sarah and Lena. "They think we're just being neighborly. Good guys helping each other out. Your classic heterosexual male friendship." His tone was light, but his eyes were serious, searching mine. I looked at him, truly looked at him. The way the sunlight caught his sandy hair, the confident curve of his smile, the depth in his piercing blue eyes. He was so openly, unapologetically himself. And I was still hiding from myself, hiding from everyone. A sudden realization hit me, a wave of clarity that washed over me like a cold shower. The secret, the one we'd been so carefully guarding, wasn't really a secret to anyone who truly knew how to look. It was an open secret, whispered in the space between our smiles, reflected in the way we gravitated towards each other. And then Leo, in his boundless enthusiasm, hit a rogue baseball directly towards Tyler's head. My paramedic instincts kicked in. "Tyler, look out!" I yelled, and without thinking, I lunged forward, pushing him out of the ball's path. We tumbled to the ground in a heap, me on top of him, my body instinctively shielding his. The world seemed to stop. The laughter of the children faded. The chatter of our wives ceased. I was acutely aware of Tyler beneath me, his lean body pressed against mine, the startled intake of his breath, the warmth of his skin. My face was inches from his blue eyes wide, a mixture of shock and something else I couldn't quite decipher. "Donald, Tyler, are you all right?" Sarah's voice, concerned, broke the silence. I pushed myself up, my face burning, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I scrambled to help Tyler up, avoiding everyone's gaze. The baseball lay innocently near us. "Yeah, fine," I mumbled, my voice rough. "Just a bit clumsy." Tyler, ever the quick thinker, recovered quickly. He clapped me on the back, a little too hard. "Donald, my hero, you saved me from a concussion. My photographic future was almost extinguished." He chuckled, a little forced, then turned to the kids. "All right, slugger, maybe we work on your aim a little, huh?" Everyone laughed, the tension easing slightly. But the air around us had changed. It felt charged, electric. Sarah and Lena exchanged a quick, unreadable glance. And for the first time, I didn't know if their smiles were truly innocent, or if they, too, had started to see the open secret shimmering between Tyler and me. As the barbecue continued, I felt Tyler's gaze on me, a steady, warm pressure. And for the first time, I didn't shy away. The truth was out there, in the open, for anyone willing to see it. And a strange sense of liberation, tinged with a terrifying uncertainty, settled over me. What happened next? Only time would tell.